Welcome on into the All Aussie Rules Football Podcast. This is episode 12, and today we're looking at opening round. There's only two matches. We're going to review them both. Stick around and enjoy. Welcome on into the All Aussie Rules Football Podcast. This is episode 12 of the year, and today we're going to be reviewing the opening round. There was only two matches in the end on the weekend, so we'll be reviewing both of them. Maybe a shorter episode than normal, just due to the fact that there was only two games instead of what will be 9 coming up. So don't forget to like, comment, subscribe whether you're on Spotify, YouTube, or Apple Podcasts, wherever you are. Make sure you like it. Make sure you give it a rating, share it with your friends, all of that stuff. Let's jump into the episode. There was only two games, let's be honest, opening round this year was more of a failure than last year, and it wasn't great, let's be honest. We had two games. I don't think either of them were belters. Friday night footy was an okay game. It was good enough, but Sunday game was not. Two games, one on Friday, one on Sunday, doesn't work. Let's be honest. Let's just get all 9 games playing all to start the season. Give every team a go. Give every supporter a go at watching their team play. It makes sense. I know you want to grow the game up in Queensland, but there's better ways to do it. Give every supporter base a reason to watch the game, not just this year 4 teams, normally 8. Bring back a full opening round is what I'm saying. Let's jump into the first game. We won't beat around the bush too much. It was Sydney Hawthorn. It was at the SCG on Friday night. And what to say about this game other than, I guess, it was kind of the best team won, I guess, is the best way to look at it. Sydney 11-10-76, Hawthorn 14-12-96. So 20-point victors for Hawthorn. It was a game that kind of certainly looked in the balance through most of it. Sydney were leading in the first quarter. Hawthorn kicked away in the second. Third quarter, it was pretty even. But it was basically a kick in at 5 points at 3-quarter time. And then it kind of it was still up for grabs until Sydney let it get away from them. I guess Hawthorn finished the game better, kicking 3-0 in that last quarter. But you look back, there was some pivotal moments that just, I guess, turned the game one way, made sure that Hawthorn were the top team. They finished the game better, certainly. Throughout most of the match, I guess, if you look at some of the stats, they certainly looked the better team on the night. Just a quick look at some of the basic stats without going too far into it just yet. We got Hawthorn plus 18 inside 50s, so the ball was certainly in their territory a lot more than Sydney's. Disposal counts were pretty similar for both teams, only 10 difference, plus 10 for Hawthorn, so Sydney were getting plenty of the ball, just maybe not using it or making the ground as well as perhaps they would have liked. But being less inside 50s, 18 less inside 50s and scoring 3 less goals, they were pretty efficient, Sydney, in the forward 50. Hawthorn's wasn't bad by any stretch of the imagination, but yeah, that's how we see it. Clearance game, as has been the case all pre-season. Hawthorn dominated the clearances. They did in both their pre-season games, and they did again. Certainly their stoppage clearances. Their centre clearances has been good, but their stoppage clearances has been outstanding. Their work in the off-season in that regard has been massive. Potentially going to be the best stoppage team in the competition from what we've seen pre-season. If they can continue this form into the first game throughout the rest of the season, they're going to be hard to stop in that clearance game, and getting your hands on the ball first is huge, especially scoring from clearances, which we'll get to the scoring sources and stuff shortly, but they are looking really dangerous in that clearance game. Sydney are no slouches in the midfield, let's be honest, but yeah, Hawthorn just were all over them. Plus 10 stoppage clearances, plus 4 centre clearances. Contested footy was the way of Hawthorn, uncontested footy as well. Turnovers were pretty even. I said in our preview episode that this was where the game was going to be run or won or lost, I guess. because I had a feeling Hawthorn were going to win the clearances. It was going to be about turnovers, whether they could control the ball or whether Sydney could force them into those turnovers. Turns out, +1 turnovers for Hawthorn, so Sydney won that by 1. When you're losing the clearances by 14, you need to be winning the turnover game by +10 at least. So there's a major spot right there that Sydney just didn't capitalise on forcing turnovers enough. We'll get through to score sources, as I said, but yeah, that's how we see it. Tackle game was pretty level for both teams, 54-59 in favour of Hawthorn, so decent amount of pressure for both teams. We'll jump into some other stats here for the teams, mainly score sources. I think that's a pretty important thing. Interestingly enough, most score models that do expected scores had Hawthorn winning this by more than they did, probably about 5-6 goals. So Sydney did make use of their chances, whereas Hawthorn perhaps not as much so. 29 shots to Hawthorn, 20 to Sydney, so certainly controlled that. Intercept marks is a massive key here. So we saw the turnover stats before, where it was pretty level, but the intercept marks was 22 to Hawthorn to 6 for Sydney. They dominated it all game. Early on, they were controlling it, and they just continued it throughout the game through all the key backs. Like, they have plenty of them, and I guess they all did their role in that regard. But 22 to 6 is huge. Just getting those intercept marks are really good ways to get turnovers too, because you just get some control into it. So yeah, that's that. Looking at score sources, Sydney were really good at scoring from stoppage. So yes, they did lose the overall stoppage count. They did get 8 goals 4 from stoppage to Hawthorn's 5-6. So Hawthorn a bit inaccurate from their stoppage work, but both teams really had a lot of shots, like 11 scoring shots to 12 scoring shots. From stoppage in a match is quite good from both teams. Turnovers where Hawthorn won this though, 7-6-48 from turnover to 35-23, so 25-point margin there in the turnover. Hawthorn kicked 2 goals from kick-ins, so that's a dangerous sign. I think the average for a team last year was like 4 or 5 points on average, so to get 12 in the first game is a good start. It was all forward half turnovers, though, really, that was the difference in this game. Hawthorn got 51 from winning the ball in the forward half and 48 from the turnover. So it was just a huge performance from them. Game plan-wise, they came to play. Some of their players weren't at their best, but the players that needed to stood up and got the job done from start to finish. It was really, really good performance from Hawthorn. We're going to jump into players and stuff in a second, but we'll get up another graphic here. So these are some of the numbers from the game that I've done. These are my ratings. So overall rating, Hawthorn 44.75, Sydney 41.22. So certainly the better team was Hawthorn. The Hawthorn forward line didn't do much, in all honesty. They weren't great. It was midfield that was getting their goals. You look at that midfield rating number of 66.19. That's where it is. You had multiple goals from multiple people in the midfield for Hawthorn, I guess. Will Day kicked 3 from the midfield. Lloyd Meek got 2 as well. Sicily went forward late and kicked a goal, but technically was a defender most of the day. Jai Newcomb got a goal. Connor Nash got a goal. So they got plenty of goals from their midfield source, which is funny enough because that's kind of what Sydney did last year to a lot of teams. Their forward line wasn't really working that well, but their midfield was making up for that with Chad Warner, with Isaac Heaney, with Errol Goulden, all kicking goals, multiple goals every week. So it's kind of what Hawthorn did here, and it worked really well for them. The back line of Sydney was really good. They beat the Hawthorn forward line, no doubt about it. It was just the midfield difference really here. Hawthorn's midfield was outstanding. Sydney's was not. They are missing Errol Goulden, but they still have plenty of good players in there. and they just didn't get it to work. Interestingly enough, Chad Warner didn't actually play that much time in the midfield. He did a little bit towards the end, I think, but overall throughout most of the game, he was more the starting in the half-forward line. And it's an interesting one when Goulden goes down that they would persist, I guess, with him forward. I know he did well up forward. He had 12 score involvements. He was huge in that regard, but at times when losing the clearances, maybe he could have been in that midfield a bit more. So he had 45% centre bounce attendances, so just under half. You'd probably, typically last year, he'd be up around that 60+% mark, so a little bit surprising way to start the season. He was very good, though, when he was around the ball. Every time he went near it, it looked like he was going to make stuff happen. So looking at the different areas of like top 5 players and stuff, Hawthorn's top 5, top 10 were both outstanding. Their bottom 5 got carried a little bit, in all honesty. Players that just didn't have really much effect. There was a few of them for Hawthorn, but their top-end talent in this game really, really just carried them. It was an outstanding performance from a few. So my version of Brownlow votes, I would go 3 for Will Day. He was absolutely exceptional. Got the job done from start to finish. 26 touches, 3 goals, as well as 9 clearances, a goal assist. He did it all. He was outstanding. Lloyd Meek in the ruck was also outstanding. He kicked 2 goals. He had 30 hit-outs, 14 touches. A really, really good performance in the ruck from him. Certainly outplayed Brodie Grundy throughout this whole match. So fantastic start to his season. If he continues that form throughout the year, there's no reason he can't be in the top 5 or so ruckman in the competition. And I guess the best player probably for Sydney was Nick Blakey. When he gets his run and carry, he's huge. He had 804 metres gained in this game. He had 26 touches, kicked a goal that looked like it was going to get him up and about and back into it, but as it turned out, they didn't run it out at all after that. But so that are my 3 Brownlow votes. If you go best players by position in my rating, so I do a rating for every single player for every single game based on their position and whatnot. This is the best players from this game. General defender, as I said, Nick Blakey was outstanding. Key defender, there weren't many good ones in this one. There weren't many good key forwards either, in all honesty. Joel Amartey was the shining light as a key forward, but key defenders and they played their role. They got plenty of intercept marks and whatnot, but overall they just didn't rate all that highly for whatever reason that is. Scrimshaw, though, was good. We'll get to him in a minute. I think, from memory, Sicily was put down as a general defender, just an FYI. General forward Dylan Moore started the game really well. Had a big first quarter. Wasn't huge after that, but played his role. Key forward, as I said, Joel Amartey. He kicked 2 or 3 goals. Played well. I should probably tell you exactly how many goals. Yeah, he got 3 in the end. I think a couple were from free kicks, but in all honesty, they were there. Inside midfielder was no doubt Will Day. He was absolutely outstanding. Played a great game from start to finish. His first half was exceptional. His second half was a bit quieter, but his other teammates kind of lifted in that second half, especially that fourth quarter. So a great game from him. Outside mid, Carl Amon was good. Ruckman, no doubt, was Lloyd Meek. He was by far the best ruckman on the ground. MVP voting, this is a system that I do. So I do top 5 players from both teams. The winning team gets 10, 8, 6, 4, 2, counting down from best player to 5th best player. And the losing team gets 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 from best player down to 5th best player. So Will Day on top, Lloyd Meek 2nd, Scrimshaw 3rd, Amon 4th, and Connor Nash 5th for Hawthorn. All outstanding games. And then for Sydney, it was Nick Blakey on top, Chad Warner, Isaac Heaney, Matt Roberts, and Joel Amartey. Chad Warner was good. Isaac Heaney was certainly down on what we saw most of his last season. He still played a good game, but he wasn't at his level of last year. He had 21 touches, 0 goals. Did get 10 clearances, so he was very effective in that area of the game, but just maybe didn't quite affect the score sheet as much as he typically would last year. So a little bit down, but overall a pretty good performance from him. But yeah, he'll need to build into the rest of his season, I think, is what we're going to be seeing from him. Is there anything else to say about this game? It was pretty much best team won the day. Hawthorn was certainly the better team out there. As I said, there was a few players that perhaps weren't outstanding for Hawthorn, but it didn't matter in the end. A couple of their small forwards didn't do a huge amount. Like Ginnivan had a couple shots a goal but didn't get one. Nick Watson basically didn't go near it all day. I think he only had 4 touches, and all might have been turnovers basically. So not a great performance from him. Finn McGuinness wasn't great, but in the end, they got the job done. It was an interesting decision by Hawthorn to have Sam Frost as their starting sub, but it worked out somehow. Who knows how it worked out, but it did, so well done to them. Warple went off injured, and that's about all I have to say about Sydney Hawthorn. It was a better game than the other game that we got on the weekend. It was good to have football back. And yeah, that's about all I have to say about Sydney Hawthorn. Moving to game number 2 that happened. It was GWS Collingwood. So this one was on Sunday afternoon. Typically I would have recorded this straight after that game, but I have left it to the next morning because I wanted to kind of dwell on my thoughts a little bit about this game. Giants absolutely smoke them in the end. 15-14, 104 to Collingwood 6-16, 52. So an inaccurate Collingwood got smashed by a really good GWS outfit. First quarter took a little bit to get into this game. GWS looked on top early, and then made use of late in the quarter where they kicked away 3 quick ones in about the space of 2 minutes late in the quarter. Second quarter was a bit of an arm wrestle most of the way, and then late again in the second quarter they kicked away. Maybe their conditioning was better. A lot of Collingwood players cramped in this. I know there was a few GWS players. There was also games in the Friday night game that also cramped up quite a bit, but it showed late in each quarter, certainly in that first half. GWS kicked the last 3 goals of both the first 2 quarters. So they went into halftime plus 23 and looked, I won't say in control, but certainly looked good. Collingwood came out and absolutely controlled the football in that third quarter. Basically the whole third quarter was up Collingwood's end, and they only managed 0-5. And then at the other end, Hawthorn got 1 goal too. So it was a bit of a stalemate of a quarter, but GWS defended absolutely outstanding throughout, and Collingwood just couldn't break the lines, couldn't get their forwards into the game at all, and couldn't make use of it when they did. Just a lot of behinds, and a lot of wasted entries. And then in the final quarter, Collingwood got the first to give themselves a chance, but then it was GWS just went bang, 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 and finished them off. Absolutely ran over the top of them. If you're looking, sorry about that. If you're looking at score models for predicted scores, most of them have it being a lot closer than a 52-point game, probably inside of a few goals. GWS were absolutely the best team in this one. We'll get to the ratings and stuff in a minute. But yeah, GWS were clearly the best team, but Collingwood wasted so many opportunities going forward and at goal. Looking at some of the basic stats, plus 12 disposals for GWS, so not much in it there. Inside 50s, Collingwood were plus 1, mainly through that third quarter where they absolutely thrashed them in inside 50 count and just couldn't kick a goal. But overall, plus 1 for the game for Collingwood is a really disappointing sign. Clearances, plus 4 for Collingwood, so they were good enough in the midfield. They just didn't make use of their clearances as well as GWS. We'll get to score sources in a minute, but GWS certainly made their clearances work at times. Turnover game is where GWS won this game, no doubt about it. Sam Taylor was outstanding, as was pretty much the whole GWS defence. 8 extra turnovers Collingwood had than GWS, so that's a really good sign there. And the other stat that I think is huge in this one, it kind of takes me back to Collingwood of early 2024. Really low tackle count. Just 39 for Collingwood, 59 for GWS. I haven't gone back and looked at all the numbers yet, but I would say that's possibly Collingwood's lowest in a couple years. It would certainly be close at 39. They just couldn't get the pressure on them. They started this way last year, where they just really struggled with tackling numbers, and it took up until the game against Brisbane in round 4 last year before they really brought that pressure back. They can't afford to leave it till 4 rounds. They need to come out next weekend in round 1 and absolutely tackle the daylights out of their opposition, because that's a glaring number that kind of shows you where they're at. Score sources and interesting stats that are not your usual things, I guess. What do we have here? Expected scores was about a 1 to 3 goal margin. So the fact that it was 52 points shows that Collingwood just wasted their opportunities. GWS did have 5 extra shots than Collingwood, but GWS were kicking goals from the boundary, and Collingwood couldn't get ones from the top of the goal square. Score sources, once again, scores from kick-ins. 2 games in a row that the winning teams had multiple goals. GWS kicked 3 goals, 1 from kick-ins, which is huge. They also got 6-6-42 to 2-8-20 from stoppages. So that right there shows you massively where this game was won. Just the fact that Collingwood won the clearances, but only managed 2 goals, 8 from clearances, whereas GWS got 6-6-42, which is an outstanding number. Turnover, no surprise here that GWS scored more from the turnover. They had 8 extra intercepts than Collingwood, so 8 extra opportunities, and they converted them 6-7-43 to 3-7-25. And it was the defensive half transition, that orange tsunami that the commentators love to talk about, was in full effect here. You look at scoring from forward half and centre bounce, it's pretty close. Both teams pretty inaccurate, but it was the defensive half transition. They were able to do that rebound football where you have your opposition having multiple inside 50s and repeat pressure, and you get over the back and you run it, and they did it outstandingly. They were just too fast out in the open. They kicked 10-4-64 to Collingwood's 2-6-18 from the defensive half. 10 goals 4 is outstanding performance, and you don't need to look at the stats to know that, though. Just watching the game, you could see how well they transitioned the ball multiple times. They probably could have got an extra couple. There was a couple drop chest marks from defensive half transitions, especially in that third quarter, that could have blown the game well out of the water earlier than they did. So that's GWS here. That was the story of the day. The way they transitioned the ball was back to their absolute best, and Collingwood just had nothing for it. They couldn't stop it. And that's the story of the day. We'll get to some numbers of my ratings. Oh, I didn't mean to get rid of that one. We'll keep that up. So the overall rating, GWS 48.85, outstanding. Collingwood 39.73, puts them in the lowest of the 4 teams that played. Forward line, GWS was really good. No doubt about it. Collingwood's was very poor. They just had no cohesion. They had no structure. They just couldn't get it working at all. The back line of GWS, as we've stated, was outstanding. They were outstanding at stopping the ball and also creating opportunities through that back line. Collingwood's back line was okay. They were under the pump at times. A lot of the scores against them were fast break, over the back stuff, which you're always on the outnumber. You need your midfield to get back, and you need pressure up the field to stop them, and Collingwood just didn't have that. The midfield game was pretty even, in all honesty, when you look at the numbers. But yeah, in the end, GWS just made it work through their forward line and back line dominating. Top 5 players, GWS absolutely were outstanding in this compared to Collingwood. Same with top 10. So of the top 10 rated players on the field, only one of them was Collingwood in my ratings. So it's a sign of how absolutely dominant GWS were in this. Bottom 5 was pretty similar for both teams. My Brownlow votes go 3 for Finn Callaghan, 2 for Sam Taylor, and 1 for Darcy Cameron, who was definitely great. He didn't have a full-time ruckman against him, so that certainly helped his game, but he was very good. Best players by position, general defender, Lockie Ash was outstanding. He used the ball really well. I think he had 25 touches, so he was good. Key defender was no doubt Sam Taylor. He kicked the first goal of the game from a 50-metre penalty. He had 12 intercepts. He had 13 marks, 9 intercept marks, which is outstanding achievement. So 13 marks, but usually you're like, oh, they're all uncontested. Well, 9 marks from the opposition kicks, plus you chuck in 4 contested marks. He was really good. Only one with more contested marks than him on the field was Darcy Cameron. General forward, Brent Daniels was really good, but they had multiple that were really good. Darcy Jones as well. Key forward, there was no good key forward on this ground. Joel Amartey was the only good key forward we had all weekend, in all honesty. Inside mid was obviously Finn Callaghan. He was outstanding. He was player of the round in the end with the highest rating of a 104.62. He was sensational. 33 touches and just broke the game open multiple times. 2 goals too, so it could have been even better. But just, fantastic performance from him. Outside mid, Paddy Lipinski was okay for Collingwood. And as I said, ruckman, no doubt about it. Darcy Cameron was the best after Kieran Briggs went off injured late in the first quarter, early in the first quarter, midway through first quarter, whenever it was. So yeah, they are the best by position. My MVP votes in this one. Finn Callaghan goes 10, obviously best player. Sam Taylor was also outstanding, so those 2 were the best 2 on the ground. Lockie Ash 6, Josh Kelly 4, and Brent Daniels 2. And then for Collingwood, really the only good player was Darcy Cameron. He gets the 5. And then Dacos got plenty of it. Wasn't really damaging, I don't think. Certainly not as damaging as he can be. 4, Lipinski 3. Perryman was good with 2. He got plenty of it early. Maybe wasn't as effective with it as he could be, but he had plenty of it. He was in there getting the hard balls quite a lot, so he played okay. And Jack Crisp in his 250th with the 1. Final thoughts on this game. It was one-way traffic in the end. Collingwood wasted their chances. They should have been a lot closer going into that last quarter than they were. It probably should have been either very level or maybe even Collingwood slightly in front. Would that have made a difference because GWS had all the run? Probably not. But yeah, I don't know. It is what it is. It's a really good performance from GWS, and not so much so for the Collingwood Football Club. Alright, we're going to jump into my power rankings. They haven't changed much. There was only 2 games. I don't want to be too reactive with my power rankings, but we've just made a couple slight changes here. Hawthorn have gone up 2 spots. Sydney down 1. GWS have gone up 1. Port Adelaide went down 2, not because they were bad, but just because Hawthorn and GWS were really good. And then Collingwood have gone down 1 to be replaced by Carlton in the 8. Yeah, as I was just saying, I don't want to be too reactive, certainly on one game. If your team lost this week, or even this week coming up, it's not doom and gloom. Last year, Brisbane lost their first 3 games of AFL Footy, and then went on to win the premiership. Go back and watch Brisbane v GWS at Manuka Oval, Anzac Day, so like round 7 last year, and tell me that Brisbane team is going to win a premiership that year. They were dreadful that day. They were absolutely dreadful. Yeah, they had injuries and whatnot, but they were terrible. And they went on to win a premiership. So it's not doom and gloom. It's one game if you do lose your opening match. So Collingwood, Sydney. And then there's going to be multiple teams this weekend coming up that lose their first match of the season. It's not great. It's not where you want to be. But it's not doom and gloom just yet. You can bounce back. You just need to go back to the drawing board and see what you can do. It's going to be a long season, though, if you don't turn it around. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have for this episode. It was still a pretty decent length one. They'll certainly be a lot longer, the review episodes, once we have like 9 games. Let me know in the comments below what you enjoy from my content, if you enjoyed any of it. If you got any constructive criticism, let it fly. Let me know what you want to see. We do 2 episodes a week. This is the first one, which is the review episode, coming to you every Monday. Typically, it will be out earlier on Monday morning than this. And then Thursday morning, another episode comes with a preview of the upcoming round. So we'll be back on Thursday morning with round 1 preview. All 18 teams in action. We're excited. I can't wait. So make sure you come back for that. Go check out all the socials. I'm posting a lot more on them, especially Instagram. We're trying to bump that one up. We're trying to bump Twitter up. So go check all them out. Appreciate you for tuning in. We'll be back. Until then, see ya.